the title, so I'm gonna go ahead and get into today's topic. I'm gonna first ask for a bit of grace because there will be times where I'm looking down at my notepad because I have a number of notes, and so I'd ask for your early forgiveness and just allowing me to gather my thoughts. So you see the title, Black Women. You don't have to be perfect at work. You don't have to be perfect in your execution of a plan. You don't have to be perfect in being successful on every single project in order to get promoted. I know one thing I recall from being in corporate is that there's always this pressure that we put on ourselves, and in some ways, other people can kind of put pressure on us as well, to get everything right and to be flawless in the execution of whatever the task or the project at that time may be. That's a familiar kind of situation that I kind of grew accustomed to until I got to a certain point in my career. And then I started giving myself a lot more grace and space to not be flawless or to not beat up on myself so much if I didn't execute everything completely the way that we had planned or that I'd planned. We all want to be very successful in our careers and in the positions that we are in, especially when there's a lot of money at stake, especially if you're managing and handling a number of different large multi-million dollar corporate accounts. You want to make sure that your company, that your employer understands that you are the right person to handle that responsibility, that what they want you can deliver on. So it's natural to feel pressure in a very professional or corporate environment. And I just know that I always kind of thought, and this may have been more naivete on my part, but I always thought that if you did a good job and if you were flawless on every aspect of your execution of that job, hello, whoever just joined, that somehow that would automatically lead you to being promoted. And I am here to tell you that that is not necessarily true, okay? And so if you have the right employer or if you're in the right position, a lot of times I like to tell people it's a marathon, not a sprint. And what I mean by that is if you're fortunate enough and you get an assignment or you get a job or a position or a role in a big company or even a small company, the goal for most professionals is to be in that capacity for at least a year, sometimes 2, sometimes 5+ years. We want to be able to get in that kind of time that we need in order to increase our money and increase our responsibility, and in some cases, increase your status and your connections. So that's all very natural and very normal. But with the fact that this is a marathon and not a sprint, it's always important to remember that just like you'll have many victories along the way, you'll have some failures and some disappointments along the way as well. That is the benefit that you have in being in a company or in a position for an extended amount of time. You will get some wins, you'll get some losses if you're good at what you're doing, and if you're taking the kind of risks you need to be taking that kind of sometimes go against the grain and go against the thinking of the company or the organization, then of course you are going to have some missteps and some losses. And so I always advise women to lean into those victories that you have, because those victories and the successes you have in your jobs and in your positions, those successes are really meant to boost your self confidence. They're also meant to push you forward in your career. So if it makes you feel good, definitely lean into it, embrace it. And naturally, if you do something and you experience feelings of success in your role and in your responsibility at work, you naturally want to duplicate that feeling time and time again. But with that comes, sometimes I feel like if you get too comfortable winning and being successful and perceived as the winner and the person who, is the right person for this job because he or she is going to always deliver, sometimes it can kind of cripple you and handicap you into one lane or of thinking, primarily because we get accustomed to a recipe of what it takes to win and what actually works, okay? And once you get accustomed to that recipe, you don't want to stray too far away from the recipe. And so not wanting to stray too far from the recipe is fine, but it prevents you from being able to grow. It prevents you from being able to take important risks. Okay, you have to forgive me. I'm having some trouble, some challenges with the internet connection where I'm located. But if for some reason you are unsuccessful, I always say, take a step back, figure out what you learned from that, okay? Once you're able to figure out what you learned from that, how is it that you can get that experience again and get another opportunity to do things differently? That's always important for your journey of learning within your company and corporate environment. The reality is that not all the time do you get that opportunity. If for some reason you're working for an employer that's really difficult or really critical about every aspect of your performance. So what is it that you learned from the loss or the lack of success on a project? Taking those lessons is really critical, because sometimes we feel that that's going to prevent us from being promoted because we had this big failure. And in order to ask for promotion or to be in a good position to get that promotion, we have to be almost flawless. And you look at the people who were promoted ahead of you or before you, and sometimes there's this idea to compare yourself. And in many instances, you may run into people whose record appears to be flawless, okay? But failure and loss is an important part of growth and success. And if you never experience the loss, it's going to be really hard to continue to position yourself for continued success. So I always say, just because you fail or you're not successful at an assignment or a project does not automatically eliminate you from being promoted. And I want to share this because I remember having this experience in my corporate career where I was assigned to an office that we had in San Diego, and the director had left and gone on to a different position. My company sent me to San Diego to fill in for the director. So I was the acting director for About it was several months that I was assigned as acting director. I knew that if I wanted the position, I could have had the position, but I didn't want to live in San Diego. So of course I declined the position. However, I did make it a point to say to myself, I'm going to do the best that I can do. And my boss at the time was really great because he gave me all kinds of rooms to make all the mistakes I needed to make, to figure things out for me. If I needed him, of course, I could always call him. He may or may not be there. He might pick and choose the times where he was available to me, but I absolutely needed that because I needed to be in a situation where I had to problem solve on my own, and I needed to feel the confidence that I got this figured out, you know? And so my job was to, I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it to people. My job was to secure a particular account. It wasn't a very big account. It was a kind of like a small size account. I had a team of just under like 10 people. And at that time, I remember not having the resources that I need, which I was totally fine with. I remember having some challenges with the team because this wasn't a team that I picked for myself. This was a team that I had inherited. But I had the choice, the opportunity to decide whether or not I wanted to position the office to secure this account or whether or not it was just a waste of our time and that we should walk away from it. And I decided against everything that the numbers had told me. I decided to push the office forward and put us in a position to secure this account. And after my company saw that this account was looking good, like things were looking pretty positive, that I could secure it, that's when I got the resources. That's when I got the help. That's when I got the support to move forward. But fast forward to the end of the story, there was a lot of stuff that happened during that time when I was assigned as director of that office. But what I can tell you is that ultimately I was successful. I didn't think I was going to be 100% successful, but after a certain point in time, I did the numbers and I was like, you know what? I got this. This is going to happen. This is absolutely going to happen. After having a number of conversations multiple times, running the numbers, all of that, I was like, I got this. This account will be secured without question. And I was so proud at the end that I was successful. And I'd gotten all this support. There was a lot of people in the company who had heard about the work that I'd done because it was against the odds. And I didn't know until later on that there were other people who were working in other parts of the country working to secure a number of other accounts, and they weren't successful. I didn't know that I was like one of the only ones or one of the few who had at that particular point in time secured this account. So fast forward to several months later, we had a regional meeting where all of us who worked for the company had to meet. I believe we met maybe someplace in Michigan or someplace in the Midwest. I remember we had a meeting. It was outside of DC. But we ended up meeting, and they went over the numbers, they went over the reports, and they went over who all secured these accounts at around that particular point in time. And I remember this white woman. She was an older white woman. She was so great. I always wanted to work with her or work for her. You know, she just had so much energy and had a great reputation for being just amazing in the work that we were doing in securing all these accounts. And at that time, I was surprised to learn that she was expected to secure account because she had almost like a flawless record, and she didn't secure hers, and I secured mine. That was such a confidence boost for me. I was like, oh my God. And then they started giving all these other reports from these other folks who did not secure the accounts that they were responsible for. And so I was one of, if not the only, or one of a few at that time that was able to secure that account, which was a big deal because it strategically went against every single thing that we had been doing as a company to secure our accounts. So not only was I able to secure it, but I was also able to do it in a manner where the odds were stacked against me numerically, and I still was able to come out successful. And so what that told a lot of the people in the company is that there was a different metric that we needed to be looking at our accounts with in order to get these accounts secured. So thankfully I was able to pave the way for a new model of how we were doing work. And so I remember thinking at that time, I was like, I know since I did an amazing job, somebody's gonna tap me on the shoulder and is going to offer me a promotion, and I would definitely be flattered. I don't know if I would accept it, but it's a good chance I will accept it. I remember thinking at that time, any day now, I might be offered a promotion, right? And so after that, I got reassigned. A month goes by, a few months go by. They give me more responsibility, but I never get tapped on the shoulder at that time to get promoted. The people who lost their accounts, there were a couple of them who not only got extended the offer to be promoted, but they actually got promoted. I was not one of the people who got promoted, even though I handled the account perfectly and I had a history of handling a number of my accounts really well, none of which led to me being promoted. And I just remember thinking, wow, because I wasn't, I at that time, I believe I probably wanted a promotion. It wasn't everything to me to get it, but I wanted it because it would have just been like a major stamp of approval by my employer and by my boss, all of his bosses, and all of that. That would have just been a great boost for me, right? But it didn't come. And it taught me so much. It taught me a lot. It made me feel like, Jess, you work so hard to be flawless at work. You work so hard to be successful at every single thing you do because you think is going to lead to something more. But clearly, the people who are getting moved ahead of you, they're not flawless at all. In fact, some of them reconnecting. There we go. So let me just sum this up by saying, again, perfection does not equal promotion. Oftentimes in the workplace, people get promoted for various reasons. Sometimes people get promoted because they know someone at the higher level, or someone owes someone else a favor, or maybe this person's career path requires that they do some time in a certain position, or maybe there's a grand plan to get rid of a person and they put them in a role that they know they can't not and likely will not succeed, as a way of weeding them right on out. In corporate America and in the professional environment, you never really know why people get promoted. I've seen it time and time again working with workers all across the United States. There are so many reasons why people are promoted, and perfection in being perfect just isn't one of them. So I advise all of you to just, when you go to work, do your jobs. If you can find enjoyment in it, find enjoyment in it. Enjoy yourself, have fun, but do not aim for perfection. Do not expect perfection. And in the instances where you are very flawless and very successful, if you are lucky, you will be rewarded. But if you're not rewarded, don't feel bad. It happens all the time. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, definitely subscribe. I talk about all things related to travel, the trips we go on. I'm creating this new playlist that deals primarily with professional and corporate women, men. Obviously, you guys can get some knowledge and some game from some of what I share, hopefully. But really, this is dedicated for the sisters because so many sisters travel, both domestically and internationally. I know you ladies work so hard, and I, having been in like a very professional, very corporate environment for more than a decade, I just want to be the voice that can cheer you on, support you, and make sure you take your breaks and your trips and all of that. So take care, ladies and gentlemen, and until next time.